Alrighty, you guys, I am finally getting these lovely lithops sent by my wonderful viewer Dawn, that were from Home Depot or Lowe's. I can't remember exactly which one they were from, but that I was saying, oh, I want to get some, and she sent me these guys, and I did the videos on washing their roots and trimming them up, and now I'm gonna pot them up. And this lovely little porcelain strawberry crate, it was a decorative thing, but it has holes in it, and it's actually fantastic and a great depth for starting out with these guys. So this is what I'm going to use, this little berry crate. And you've probably seen people use rubber bands like this. For bare root lithops, it's a lot easier a lot of times to pot them up by hand without any assistance, because their roots look like this. And so, you know, holding a couple little stubs in while you put soil around isn't too difficult. But when you have some that have really long roots like this and others that have really small root systems, being able to hold them all at the right depth and try and get soil in can be really frustrating, to say the least. And so with the rubber bands, it's really easy to just pull and kind of poke, and you know, there's no reason to line them up all like a perfect grid, because everything's a different size and you're gonna have to pull and prod anyways. So what we do is just arrange. I'm gonna see if these two will come apart. This was a double-headed one, but I just pulled this one apart, and it's got some great new root growth, and I want it to establish on its own. So that'll make it a little bit easier. We're just going to start poking these here and there. You can put your rubber bands, you know, closer together or farther apart to hold whatever you need. Do a slightly bigger section here. I'm gonna move this one over one because I got a big one here. I think I may move this guy as well. Some of these I'm leaving sticking up a bit more than I typically would when I plant, if I planted really healthy lithops, because when these big box store type lithops, or any lithops that have been kind of abused, shed their leaves, a lot of times they're quite a lot smaller. And because of that, these guys have etiolated, which means stretched up. See how long this guy is? Trying to get to the light, but a lot of times when their second set of leaves comes out, they're a lot shorter because they haven't had time to be reaching yet. And I can feel the body of this new set of leaves ends about right at the end of this gray and at the top of the green. So if I buried this all the way, when it came out, it might be a bit buried. So I'm going to leave it up just a bit more than I typically would. All right, I think that'll do. I'm keeping, I have two more here that were from a different place and a different friend, and I'm keeping them separate, trying to keep them potted based on what batch they came in, so it'll be easier for me in the future when I'm showing you guys these and what happens with them to remember. So now I got to get the potting medium, and these guys are going into a mixture of pumice that I sterilized and then super soaked, which I will do a video on that soon. you just basically soak the pumice in a fertilizer or rooting solution and then dry it back out, and the pumice retains a lot of the nutrients that were in the mixture. I mixed it with a little bit of peat for acidity, about 6 to 1, 6 parts of pumice to 1 part peat. Then we're just going to start filling in here. For some types of soil, potting and holding pumice or holding lithops, you know, isn't as problematic. But since we don't want to use, you know, regular succulent soil or something like that on these guys, which is what's easy because you can kind of mush and wiggle them around, since we don't want to use that on them, this rubber band technique helps. And you can use anything. You can use string if you don't have rubber bands. It's just the rubber bands grip onto the pots really well. String tends to slip off and can get a bit frustrating. Really fine wire works also. You can kind of wrap it around and just twist it and then unwrap it. But rubber bands are definitely the easiest thing I've found. If one side is easier, you know, has more space to be adding the soil to than another, just tilt it to that side and let some of the soil go over there, and so you can add more in the side that's easy. And before I get this too full, just making sure these are settled down where I want them to go. Just holding them and shaking some of the soil to the other side to fill in. And with these guys, I'm not going to be using a top dressing. I want to be able to get a good look at their actual soil. And this is so much pumice anyways, it'd be kind of pointless to put a top dressing. It's almost all pumice anyways, just with a little bit of peat. Alrighty, so when you go to take your rubber bands off, be a little bit careful because they can kind of grab onto the ones on the other side and just pull them up, and it's really hard to get them back down. So be sure and go up and then over. Don't try and go up on one side and then start pulling, as you'll catch on your lithops. And if you wrap them around twice, which sometimes I do when I'm low on rubber bands, then that's when it gets really difficult. As long as it's a fairly small pot and they're only going around once, it's a lot easier. I've had several people bring up the fact recently that lithops have really long tap roots, and that because of that they have to be in a pot that's, you know, 4 to 5 to 6 inches deep, and they can't be in more shallow pots. However, it takes lithops a really long time to, there was one that was double wrapped. So I gotta be a little more careful because they get strung really, there we go. Gotta get some give in it first. All right, sorry. That lithops need a large, deep pot right away because they have a deep taproot. And my answer to that is, if your lithops has a 5-inch long taproot, then sure, try and find, you know, a deeper but a smaller around pot. However, it takes lithops a long time, especially if their root system has been damaged, with which I have never seen a lithops that was shipped or sold in a store that had a really great, you know, just amazing root system. And so they're almost always damaged just because of how they're separated and sold, etc. And so it takes quite a while for that to happen. And in the meantime, you have all of that excess soil below your root line that isn't getting any evaporation and no help from the roots to dry out. It's just sitting down there all soggy and wet for usually years before your root system would actually be long enough to need that deep of a pot. So what I say is plant in a shallower pot at first, get the roots going, get everything really happy, and then you can go deeper as you need to. It's very, very easy to pull these guys out and put them into a deeper pot without hurting or disturbing their roots once they get established and really well developed roots. But if you start out with a deep pot, something like this, for example, you know, that's going to be a good 5 inches deep. There's so, I mean, especially if your lithops looks like this, which a lot of them do when they're shipped bare root, you can see how much soil. And to get pots this deep, I see people going really, really wide because you can't find, you know, tiny little pots that are, you know, 4 inches deep, generally speaking. And so they're going wide thinking, well, I have to, because it's better to have a bigger pot so that the roots can go down and have room. But in reality, it's almost a death sentence for a lot of lithops, especially if someone is very new to them and doesn't know how to water or not water, because this much soil without any roots penetrating it and oxygenating it is just a cesspool for bacteria and fungus to breed, because it just doesn't air out. And in general, when people are looking for deeper pots, they often go with plastic, which is kind of a double whammy because it's not breathing. A deeper terracotta pot, while still not ideal if it's wide, which this isn't a deep one, but if it's wide, it's still not ideal, but it's much, much better because it breathes. So keep that in mind when planting. You do not need to, you need to plant for the root system that your plant has currently, not for the root system that you want in the future. Other plants that are really quick growing, other types of house plants, etc., that, you know, within a month or two can need more room, and if they start getting root bound, it's really detrimental to them. Those type of plants, absolutely, going up a pot size is a better idea, just in case. But for these guys, it's better to wait until they need some more room, and you're seeing that their root systems have exceeded the current capacity of your container that you already have them in. If they're not exceeding the capacity of the container you have them in, there is never a reason to replant or repot into a larger pot size. So if your lithops roots are not bigger than the 2-inch pot that they came in, they do not need bigger than a 2-inch pot for sure, and a lot of times they need smaller. Alrighty, I think that's it for today. Got these guys all potted up, so these guys are going to get a drink. Not right now. They're going to be in this pot for a couple of days, let any damage that might have occurred from repotting, even though it was pretty gentle today, heal up, and then they're going to get watered with a willow rooting solution or a vitamin B1 rooting solution, and from time to time. And I will do an update when we have new leaves coming out, which we've got some, but when there's more to see, and also an update on the root when I repot eventually. So there they are for today. I hope you guys have a great day. If you know anyone that would like to see this video and that would benefit from seeing how to repot their lithops, please share it. And please comment below if you have any questions or ideas that you would like to share. If you'd like to join our Facebook group, there will be a link to that in the description box below. You can follow me on Instagram or Garden Tags if you would like to as well. And I post a lot of pictures of these guys that I just can't really share on YouTube because there's not really a platform to do that. So if you'd like to follow me on one of those, please do so. And until next time, happy growing!